Peace and Black Power, family. Here we are, thoughts from under a black light. Another one of them segments of information and knowledge that I'm trying to convey to the community pertaining to various different topics. Like I said, it's going to be pretty good information for you. And want to try to get people into thinking, you know, questioning, analyzing, examining, reflecting, because we know that reflection is the business of man. The sense of himself is his first duty. So reflection, thinking, and all of that, thinking, willing, reasoning, understanding, all of these right here are tools that we use in the workshop of the mind where things are made of thought. And that's how we build our character up. And in the process of building up character, you are required to seek knowledge and information that can raise yourself up from personality, perspective, and so forth and so on. So what we're going to do here is that it's not going to be a real long thing, but it's going to do a couple little things just for food for thought. I'm going to share my screen. All right, so when we talk about consciousness and what that means and how it is actually um, exercised in everyday life, what we have to understand is that, of course, yes, it's just a word, consciousness, but the definition of the word entails a state of condition. So let's start off first by going into the dictionary. All right, and go right here in my dictionary. Open this dictionary up because we gotta, just we gotta start off with just basic stuff, man. Just get people hold on, hold on for a second. Uh, let's go right now. According to this dictionary, it says conscious, characterized by or having an awareness of one's environment and one's own existence, sensations, and thought. Synonyms: aware. B, mentally perceptive or alert, awake, capable of thought, will, or perception, subjectively known or felt, intentionally conceived or done, deliberate, inwardly attentive or sensitive to something, showing awareness of preoccupation with something, often used in combination of cold conscious approach to healthcare, a valve conscious shock. So let's go even further. Let's go on down here. We see how this word is put together. You see that right there? It's Indo-European roots, right? Means to know, basically. All right. So if we look at the first connotation, which is characterized by or having an awareness of one's environment and one's own existence, sensations, and thoughts. Okay. So when we hear people talking about they are part of the conscious community, what they're saying is that the conscious community is people or community that's aware of their environment, their own existence, their sensations, and their thoughts themselves. Okay, key to this whole demonstration. So consciousness is a process of being aware of yourself. And so how do you come to be aware of yourself? Thought and sensation. And when we deal with the area of thought, what we're talking about is the reality of the mind. And we know that the mind builds itself by way of information and knowledge. So if you're conscious, you could be conscious at certain degrees based upon your knowledge and your awareness of your environment, yourself, and everything else. But you got to have knowledge, and knowledge is acquired through experience. The more experiences you have, the more knowledge you retain and use. Okay, so what I'm trying to say is that the focal point of all African studies was know thyself. That was the focal point. They had it on all of the temples and basically saying this temple is dedicated to the knowledge of self. So now you say, okay, well, you ask questions. So you say knowledge of self. So who am I? What am I? Why am I? Those are legitimate questions that you should ask yourself, because that would take you into a wide variety of different subjects. And these subjects can range from psychology, religion, sociology, biology, anatomy, physics, because we got to understand that the human being is a conglomerate, a composite made up of a wide variety of different elements, entities, so to speak. So what would be the basic and fundamental step that one takes in the acquisition of the knowledge of self? What is the basic first step? Well, the basic first step basically is um, understanding your personal history, which means from the time that you were born until where you at right now, and learning all of that. Okay, this gives you information and knowledge about yourself from a minute perspective, of course, because it's only going to deal with the time span in which you've been living. But you also would have to have contact with your mother, your father, your family and siblings, and so forth and so on, who can add on to things about yourself that you perhaps might have not remembered or don't really have it on your conscious mind at the time, like when you were small and what you used to do and so forth and so on. And your mom, you could talk to your mom. She could tell you about your grandmama or your great grandmother. You give you the history of your family, where y'all come from, and so forth and so on. And when you go on to those particular areas, now we're dealing with history. Okay, so the first step to the knowledge of self is learning your personal history. You got to know your personal history, your lineage, your family, you know what I'm saying, where your family comes from. And then this can take us into a more extended history, which takes us into, our ancestors that go beyond, our own generations, and my mother's generation and my grandmother's generation and my great grandmother's generation. And it takes us all the way back until it gets sources of origin. And what we know from this type of study, from a historical perspective, or genealogical perspective, so to speak, um, what we know is that it seems that, far as science tells us, that the origin of humanity is in the continent of Africa. And has been established through DNA, genetics, stuff like that, that the first human beings that walked this planet uh, came out of South or Equatorial Africa and peopled out from various different ways. Some through the gates through Egypt, some of them went across the Gibraltar Strait and entered into Spain and Portugal, and then France, and then all over Europe, and so forth and so on. And as they traversed these trails and went in these particular locations, they picked up different cultural concepts. They picked up, there were some modifications in the genetic sequence based upon adaptation to various different ecological zones and so forth and so on. And they people out and become quote unquote different people. Okay. Now, some say, well, how can a black person or a dark hued person become a light hued person? Well, there's many co-factors to that particular dynamic. Because you got to look at it from the environmental dynamic, the biological and genetic dynamic, and then you got to look at um, you got to understand what melanin is and how that works and so forth and so on, and how people can become lighter when they're moving in different ecological zones and become different people on a phenotypical sense, and even on the genotypical sense too, because sequences in the genes changes over a course of period of time to adapt to certain environments in which you're going into. So these things are factors. So with this in mind, um, the knowledge of self has a lot to do with the knowledge of where you come from, where you originated, where your people originate, where they come from. And in learning this, you can understand how your people and yourself got to be the way you are presently. And with this, you can look through this whole process and you can determine where mistakes was made and things happen, and whether it's good or bad, which causes certain shifts in cultural expressions and shifts in paradigms and so forth and so on as time goes on. Even from a linguistical perspective, changing in language and stuff. But see, when you're dealing with African American people, our situation here is as a result of an act of war. And what does this mean? What this means is that we are here because we were taken out of Africa and brought over here as slaves to build this country for the people who classify themselves as white, aka European, aka Caucasians, whatever name you want to use. We're going to deal with that subject too, but that's a whole nother day. All right, so we are here. We've been displaced from the continent of Africa and implanted here in the wilderness of North America, or in the West, as they call America, and as cattle slaves to work this land, manipulate this land, and build this country up. Okay, and we have been through a wide variety of different uh, ferocious and uh, degrading circumstances, during the time that we've been over here, and we're still going through right now. You know, um, we still got problems. You know what I'm saying? And the conscious community is addressing it, and they're looking at things from a Afrocentric or self-centric perspective, and looking at it, from the eyes of um, the people who are actually experiencing this, and not as opposed to somebody who's not a part of the experience is telling us what it is. You know what I'm saying? That don't work. You don't let a thief describe his crime. That's common sense in my book. But anyway, um, we yeah, we've been here, and a lot of things was extracted from us. And what I mean is extracted, which means it's taken from. We was denied to practice our original religion. We was denied to speak our own language. We were our mores and customs was taken from us, and another set of mores and customs and cultural manifest was imposed on us, of course, and language, religion, things like that. And that came from the people who conquered us, the people who enslaved us, the people that brought us into this demonstration to build this country. So, given that a fact, the African American here today on the quest of the knowledge of self has to, in order to be true with it, has to go back and to regain that was taken from you and remove or replace the present implants with your original implants, so to speak. Your original customs, your original language, your original mores, your original religion. Okay? In order for you to be a conscious person seeking self-consciousness. I mean, you so let's um let's do this. Let's slide up here real quick. Put me over here. Let's do this. And the reason why, this is um a very important topic because literally our lives depend on this. And the reason why I say our lives depend on it is because when you don't have a proper knowledge of yourself, when you do not have those elements that's natural to you, all right, and you take on customs and traditions and religions and languages and so forth and so on, other people, 9 times out of 10, you're going to be subject population to those people. And their customs and mores and traditions is going to be pretty much your way of life. In other words, you're cloned into these people who gave you this stuff. You go and, like, give an example, you go in a church. You got all black people in this church and you got all these white folks on the wall. Okay? Or even you're talking about the religion, Christianity. That's not ours. Okay? That's something that was imposed on us. Okay? When you celebrate Christmas, when you celebrate Easter, when you celebrate Mother's Day, Father's Day, all of these different things, that stuff don't originate with us. That's something that was imposed on us by the conqueror. Okay? So, before I go into some of the things that I want to go into, I want to, matter of fact, I'm in the wrong thing. Hold on, let me go over here. Uh, let's see it. Now, what we want to do is try to just getting things started. You know what I'm saying? With this whole process. Just getting it started. Okay. Um, just give me a second. Uh, hold on. I'm gonna put up the right stuff. To I should have had it already out, but like I said, I just wanted to jump in here and just uh, start right this. We're gonna go here with this particular write-up. The reason why I'm doing this is because I want everybody to understand that the the whole breadth of what I'm trying to get at. What I'm saying, but here's my basic premise. The African American population over here does not know themselves. And the reason why I say that is because they've been brainwashed. They've been culturally manipulated. They have been socialized by the conquerors. All right, and in the educational system, in the political system arena, and and generally sociology itself, and they utilize a form of a psychological politics, as a means to keep us brainwashed. Okay, so what we're gonna do is just a little bit of reading and give you an idea as to how this thing works. Okay, it says although punishment for its own sake may not be entirely without recompense, it is nevertheless true that the end and goal of all punishment is the indoctrination of the person being punished with an idea, whether that idea be one of restraint or obedience. Now, slavery was a punishment. And why do I say it? Slavery was a punishment? Because it was a punishment because it was an infliction upon our people by another people with pain, suffering, agony, death, mayhem, so forth and so on, and eventually being used as tools of service uh, to these people to build this country. So, obedience to what? Indoctrination. Okay? Restraint, which restrain you. Indoctrination. So, what is indoctrination? Let's go. Let's look it up. So we be clear on that. You ain't got to go get your dictionary. I got one right here. Okay? And let me pull this up real quick. Let me slide this over. Slide over here. Let's look it up. All right. Let's go ahead. All right. Indoctrination. To instruct in a body of doctrine or principle. To imbue with a partisan or ideological point of view. To teach systematically, to accept doctrines, especially uncritically, rare, to import learning, to instruct. So basically, indoctrination is a learning where people put information and data inside of you. That is through the educational process. And education don't necessarily mean inside of a building. Education comes from a wide variety of different sources. As long as you got see, touch, taste, smelling, and hearing, you're learning through all five of those sense perceptions. So indoctrination has an impression on the mind, the brain, the nervous system, and so forth and so on. And it causes the person to be in line with it, so they won't deviate from it. Okay? So I just want you to understand it. That's what this word means. So what am I trying to get at? What I'm trying to get at, if you are in the business of trying to become conscious, which is to be aware of yourself, your environment, okay, and all of the various different components that make up who you are. That only this means it's just your remote history, which is not your remote history, but your fundamental history, which is the history from the time you're birth to now. But it's a historical. What were you before you came in contact with the individuals that indoctrinated you? All right. What was your customs? What was your culture? What was your mores? You know what I'm saying? What was your religion? What was that called? What part of the continent of Africa come from? These things is just this quest is just pretty much a hell of a task, especially a group of people that's coming out of the situation that African Americans came out in 1865 all the way up down. I mean, 1865 going all the way up to Jim Crow, civil rights movement, even to this day. We have been faced with a lot of challenges. And these challenges that prevent us from gaining the proper knowledge of ourselves. So we have to now clear ourselves from this indoctrination in order for you to truly say that you are conscious. Because if you are conscious of yourself and your environment, then means that you understand what has happened to you as a people, what you were before that which has happened to you before. And if you don't know this, then you're not conscious at all. So we're just trying to put things in the proper perspective so there's a start point for our liberation. And liberation starts first with you as an individual, and then to the collective. But it got to start with you first. And it's you just got to be disciplined and studying books like this, the rule, understanding what happened, understanding the indoctrination, understanding, you know, proper ways of thinking, things of that nature. Going into the science of the mind, understanding science, understanding what this stuff is. You see, you're going in deep to try to get an understanding. You know what I'm saying? You can get an understanding. Taking things back to the original. And as you take these things back to the original, you're going to come up with some conclusions. And the conclusions that you're coming up with is going to drastically cause a change in you, which means the misinformation or indoctrination that the enemy put in you will soon dissipate. But this requires study, reflection, analyzation, and motivation. So with that being said, family, I just wanted to come up here and just give you a little shout out of what I was doing. And I want to say peace to the family. And I guess I'll see y'all next time. Thanks for listening.